Several months ago, Skybound, the Robert Kirkman image imprint, began publishing Void Rivals, and the first issue showed that it was the beginning of the relaunch of the G.I. Joe and Transformers franchises, what they call the Energon universe. And it's been several months now, so instead of doing, hey, just a number one, I mean, I do have two number ones here, but with Duke and Cobra Commander. But I thought that, okay, we've finished the first installment of Void Rivals, and we're 4 issues into Transformers, and we have two new issues. I thought it'd be kind of an interesting time to just kind of go through and review and just me give some thoughts. Void Rivals was the first one of this series, and it is a 6-issue series. It's like a season 1 or whatever you want to call it. The second season will start off with issue 7 in, I believe, March or April. And this series has been interesting, but it's been very, very, very slow build. And sometimes it's almost so slow build that it almost runs the risk of not being that interesting. But then you'll see these little Transformer universe characters, these minor characters pop in, and then you'll have this ongoing story. But this one had been very slow build, not enough to where I'd want to stop reading it, but enough to where it needs to kind of pick up a little bit. The art is okay. I'm not a big fan of the art. There's a lot of I guess it's native to the home. There's a lot of green and blue and greenish yellow shades here in the planet that they're on. But it's been entertaining enough, and since it seems like it's a slow build and Kirkman is, has a track record of being successful with his comics, I'm going to pick up the second installment. But I think we need to start getting a little bit action going on here. But it's not bad. Like I said, this is issue 6. Issue 7 starts up in March or April, I believe. Okay, Transformers. Now, Transformers is written and drawn by Daniel Warren Johnson. And Daniel Warren Johnson isn't the first person that I would have picked for this series. I mean, I think he's a fine cartoonist, but there are people that think of him as like the next Jack Kirby, and I don't think he's at that level. And the reason why I didn't think that he would be the first choice is that usually when you have Transformers, you have anything with machinery, you have this very clean style, almost pretty, like old school George Perez kind of art, where everything just looks immaculate. The coloring and the inking assists with that. And this is the Daniel Warren Johnson style, where like Paul Pope and I think it's James Harriman is just slinging a lot of ink. And the coloring is these vibrant colors, but there's still a very dark tone, I think partly because of the ink and also partly because of just the coloring. I wouldn't think that this would be like your typical Transformers type of, I guess, style. But over 4 issues, it's established quickly that this is a war between the Decepticons and the Autobots. And I'm not going to get really deep into it because I'll be honest with you, I've never watched a Transformers. I think the only cartoon of theirs that I ever saw was Beast Wars, that old 80s, late 80s one. Other than that, I never really watched Transformers. Don't know very little about them. But it establishes quickly that this is a war, that these two species are in battle, and there's not a lot of talking like, oh, we're going to defeat you. There's just like, let's go kill these guys. More from the Decepticons because they're evil. But as I said, this actually has the feel and style of like these two alien races are in a war, and humanity is just suddenly caught up in it. So for that reason, this very heavy inked, kind of like I wouldn't say non-pretty because the art is good, but this like not super clean style actually makes it feel more grungy, more like, okay, this is serious business. These are really serious explosions. Sometimes when I think the art is too pretty, it's hard to take seriously the damage, but when the art's a little scratchy and the art isn't just really meticulously detailed, it feels more like real life, more grungy, more dirty, more dangerous. So, and I will say that the story has had a lot of action and does have a lot of stuff going on. You can tell this is also a slow build, but with this Transformers series, just my opinion, when you have robots, robots can't be like Brian Michael Bendis comic and just sitting around the kitchen table talking about something that happened 3 issues ago. You need to have action, and in that respect, the comic delivers. But there is character development, there are ongoing plots, and I think that is pretty effective for what it is. I'm still enjoying it, so I'm going to keep on reading this. If you haven't read it, I'm probably sure that probably the first trade will be available in a few months. But like I said, the art isn't bad, but as you can see, there's a lot of ink. It's primary colors, but it's still dark, so it's an interesting color palette. But it's still interesting. And that's from someone who has no connection to the Transformers universe. Within the last month, we've had 2 #1 issues, one of Cobra Commander and one of Duke. Now, I will also say that I have very little knowledge, and I've never read a G.I. Joe comic in my life. And I think I saw the G.I. Joe movie that came out in the 80s, but never really followed it. I just thought it was kind of silly that you have like 1,000 bullets being fired, and like nobody actually gets hit. You know, it's that 80s thing where you have to have violence, but then you can't imply that someone actually got hurt. So if they got blown out of the sky, the pilots always survived and always had like little parachutes. So start with Duke. Duke was actually introduced in Transformers 2, and this is written by Joshua Williamson, who's had pretty good runs with superhero comics, and I think is a pretty decent writer, pretty good writer actually. And so this just kind of shows that, you know, Duke is like this basically super soldier. He's like one of America's finest. And for the events of the second issue of Transformers, he knows that there's something going on here with these beings, and that he's not being told the truth. And there's like a recap of what happens in Transformer 2. So the art is really good, and it's got a lot of impact. It's still got that color palette, which uses vibrant colors, but still seems kind of dark. And so, you know, it just kind of shows like 6 months later, he's like kind of not gone off the grid, but kind of like he's not really wants to be a soldier anymore. He's trying to figure out what's going on with the Transformers. Because his concern is like, 1, what happened? And 2, like, why is the government keeping this secret? I'm not going to spoil it and show you, but it's a pretty interesting comic. Again, I know nothing about the G.I. Joe except there's a ninja guy, Snake Eyes, I think, who looks pretty cool. I don't know what he does, and then he walks around with a sword. I don't know what his backstory is. And so you're starting to see different elements of the Transformers universe being shown. And in the first issue, there's no letters page. So Joshua Williamson writes and says that, you know, they talk about a multi-year storyline. So to me, part of that long, slow build that I mentioned earlier is what they want. They're not going to just sit there and just rush and give everybody what they want to see the first 2 or 3 issues. They're just going to make you wait for it, but along the ride, hopefully make it interesting. So I actually like this, and so I'm definitely looking forward to the next issues. This is a 6-issue miniseries. I don't know what they're going to do after that, but again, if you guys want to trade weight, you can. This is actually pretty interesting as well. I mean, for what it is fun, but it's not stupid fun. And the last issue is Cobra Commander. Now, I know who this guy is, and I know that he speaks like a snake with that thing. That's about it, all I know. I know he's a bad guy too. So they just kind of show the intro, and they actually show like the origin of Cobra Commander. And I don't know if this ties into any history or if it's an homage to anything. Again, this to me is like brand new territory. And I haven't really wanted to know like what the backstory was, because, you know, this was done first at Marvel, and then it was done at different publishers, most recently IDW. So I think Skybound is just going to say, we're just going to do a reboot. We're not going to throw away everything, but we're going to like make it our own. So to me, it seems sort of like pointless to find out all the history unless you've been a fan all along. But the art's pretty good. Kind of establishes the motivation for Cobra Commander. And again, it's that style where it looks dark, but the colors are bright primary colors, and bright colors in general, just bright reds and yellows and deep blues. So it looks pretty good. I actually thought this actually looked pretty cool. And again, it just gives you enough of a taste to keep you intrigued. So overall, I think that the launch has been successful. I mean, I don't know how it's... I know that the fans of Transformers love it, but, you know, the fans of Transformers are going to probably love... they're going to like anything Transformers. I don't know if they're going to love it, because I don't think they love the IDW stuff. Void Rivals, again, I hope that they pick it up a little bit in the second season, or whatever you want to call it, second chapter. But these aren't bad. These are pretty good. If you've been on the fence because you weren't sure how it was going to be, as someone who has no history with these characters, and I'm just taking them as they are, it's intriguing enough to see where they're going with this. But you can tell that, and I'm not going to spoil a lot of stuff, but to me, the common thread that goes through here makes sense so far. And it's just kind of interesting how you see different facets of this world with so far very little interaction, except for Duke, which I mentioned earlier. And but they are all in the same universe. So I think they've so far done a good job. And, you know, it's hard to bet against Robert Kirkman. For, you know, a lot of people don't like Robert Kirkman. They talk smack about him, but he's been successful. Not besides The Walking Dead. He's had Invincible. He's had a lot of books that have had long runs, and you can't. It's hard to knock him for the success he's had. And at this point in time, he doesn't really need to make comics. I think he really wants to make this line, this Energon line, good. So anyway, I hope you found this interesting, and would like to hear from people that have actually vested in the Transformers universe and the G.I. Joe universe, and what their thoughts are, because, as I said, I have no history with these characters. Anyway, I hope you found this enjoyable, and thanks.